Joining us at this stage on the panel is going to be Andrew McCallum, and he's the co-founder of XYZ Innovations. But he's also been working very hard at developing a Bitcoin specifically designed for supporting tech startup companies, and it's called Ozcoin. So, tell us all about it. Andrew, welcome aboard.
Thank you. Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Olivia. Just a few little corrections there.
Oh,
firstly. So it's not a Bitcoin.
No.
It is a cryptocurrency, and it's based on the Ethereum code, so based on the Ethereum network, so ERC20 token. So Oxcoin is the culmination for us of a hell of a lot of work working in startups, helping other startups, building startups, and really trying to understand what's missing in startup ecosystems and how we can create successful startup ecosystems in areas where we have tremendous founders, we have tremendous support for startups, we have some investors, but we don't have the coherent, focused ecosystem that you see in a lot of places. So at a very high level, that's our mission.
Let's just talk a little bit about your background and how you got here. So you've been working with startups for quite a long time. Just give us an overview of where you've come from.
Certainly. So I, way back when I worked for CabCharge. So I worked in various tech roles there, helped look after their payment network and their security on that payment network, and then realised that the corporate world of IT really just wasn't for me. There was a whole lot more excitement out there to be had, and I was lucky enough to be in a position inside the organisation there to develop some new products and some new platforms, and then realised that there's a whole other world of startups there that we can get into. So I looked around Newcastle. This was some years ago now, 5 years ago I guess, looked around Newcastle to try and work out whether the community was ready for to really, I guess, take the next push and build an accelerator or an incubator in Newcastle. Realised at the time that it wasn't quite ready. There wasn't quite the coherence that was needed in the community, so I ended up going to Sydney, and so we built Digital Forge in Sydney. So Digital Forge was for want of a better word, an accelerator. It was a foundry to build tech startups, to build mobile app startups, essentially. And we built some startups there. We worked with some startups and built some startups of our own, taking one of them to listing on the ASX. So that was the journey all the way from working out of a library with three of us to ringing the bell at the ASX and everything that goes along with that.
And what was the name of that?
So that was Refined.
Ah, right. Okay.
So Refined has so it was one of the suite of HR startups around that time that listed on the ASX within sort of 12 months before and after we listed, and all saw a very similar fate. So that, the other startups there were OnePage and the Search Party. So the three of us all saw very, very similar patterns in our share prices and in the company to some extent as well. Refine's still running. It's now partnered with a blockchain company called Loyal, and so before I left Refine, I helped to re-architect what they're doing, and so that's now a blockchain company. They do employee engagement, employee rewards and recognition on the blockchain.
So it's a space that you're very familiar with, given the journey you've already gone on to so far, and now coming around. So I'm just interested, you said something that at the time when you came to Newcastle, there just wasn't the, I guess, the environments or the energy there for what you wanted to do? Or?
It wasn't energy, it wasn't environment. There were a lot of people trying really hard and doing some amazing things. But there wasn't a lot of cross-pollination and cooperation to an extent. So there are a lot of people, each with their own opinions, but the community itself wasn't big enough to have everybody with their own opinions pushing in different directions. And now there's still enough people pushing in different directions and doing their own things, but it's certainly, the community's much larger now, but there's also a much larger suite of people, from co-working spaces to events to various support organisations to startups who are pushing in the same direction. So it's a whole lot more collaborative, it feels now. There really is this, it seems to me anyway, this attitude in Newcastle and the Greater Hunter region that there are tremendous people here, and there are some tremendous companies, and there's going to be more tremendous companies if we all work together.
So what are you doing to bridge the gap with your experience and your connection in the industry, and now that you're opening up Oxcoin? Tell me about bridging the gap and coming from having startups as enterprises that you launch to now working in an ecosystem.
So one of the things we realised was that it's the challenges that the startups and startup founders face is often put down to a lack of capital. But the reality is that it's more of an ability to get stuff done. And capital can certainly enable that, but within a small, or within a community, like a startup community, as small or as big as it happens to be. I mean, you could look at the whole Australian startup community as a single community. It's still small inside the economy, inside the Australian economy. So the work and the effort that goes on inside the community and the growth that's seen inside that community often isn't reflected in value at an economy level. Purely because, our economy is in essence controlled by our four big banks. You see the stock market go up or the stock market go down based on the success of the banks. You see the dollar go up and go down based on various factors, but the banks certainly influence it. The success of some tremendous Australian startups like Atlassian, Canva, have no impact on the Australian dollar, have no impact on people going down the road and being able to buy something cheaper or more expensive, or pay for a service that's cheaper or more expensive. But the community itself, there's so much innovation, so much work, so much effort that goes into building these innovative companies, that there's that disconnect between the size of the community and the size of the economy is something that I think needs a medium for that value exchange to fix, and a cryptocurrency is a perfect medium for that.
No, I'm just going back to that notion of where we're at and the push forward. The big problem I think that we definitely face in trying to bring attention and aware of the extraordinary things that are happening underneath is that I think predominantly people just don't understand. Broadly, I made the faux pas because of Bitcoin, and that's almost like it's part of the shorthand people have. Oh, Bitcoin,
yes,
because it's so prominent. So what are you doing to overcome that with Oxcoin?
So the first thing is, and it's not something we're doing a tremendous job at yet, but the very first thing is we're trying not to use too much jargon. There is a lot of jargon, there's a lot of confusion. We're really trying to bring it down to the core elements and to help people understand what a cryptocurrency is used for, and probably not what it is used for, but what it should be and can be used for, and how that applies to a community like a startup community. So, for instance, if you look at Bitcoin, for instance, as a currency, its value is based upon its scarcity. It's more valuable the scarcer it gets, and you can buy things with it. You can buy pizza with a Bitcoin, but it has no, like any currency. It has no intrinsic value. Its value is only what you can buy or sell for it. Now, a national currency is backed by a national economy, so that intrinsic value, while it's completely arbitrary, is still controlled. It is centralised and it's controlled and it exists within the economy. A Bitcoin, for instance, on the other hand, doesn't have that. Now, a cryptocurrency gives us the perfect opportunity to decentralize, to take that controlling, the centralized controlling mechanism out of that economy and say, no, the value of what you do has nothing to do with whether the big four banks made $12 billion profit this year or $4 billion profit, and whether the executives went to the Bahamas or whether they went to Fiji. Right? None of that makes a difference and shouldn't make a difference to the success of your business within its ecosystem or within its community. So the cryptocurrency, the ability for it to be contained to build a new economy, and to build an economy within a community that sees a fair representation of value for the work done in that community. And then, to come back to answer the question, it's I guess really just trying to explain that, to try and drag, and like I said, I'm not very good at taking all of the jargon out of it, try and drag some of this jargon out of it, trying not to talk about ecosystems, trying not to talk about fiat, trying not to talk about the various investments and how equity works. Just trying to help people understand how controlling or containing the economy within a community can be to the benefit of everyone in that community.
Yeah, so that's what you're trying to achieve with Oxcoin. You're trying to have an ecosystem of different startups under the same banner, using the same cryptocurrency, and that is backing the cryptocurrency. So instead of CommBank backing it, the grouping of those companies creates the value of the coin. Is that right?
Yeah. So ultimately our goal is to ensure that the global innovation community and the global startup community, that the value inherent in the transactions within that. So whether it's you've got a startup and you need a website built, and maybe it's a startup, maybe it's not a startup, maybe it's a pub. Maybe you've got a pub and you decide, okay, we need some marketing done, we need some social marketing, and we need a website. And you can go and pay dollars for that and get that done. But if that marketing and that website was core to the success of your company, of your business, then in a fair economy, that would be represented through a value growth within that community. And not just because more people go and use that service now, more people say, that was an awesome website, it made that business thrive, I'll go and use them, because the whole value of the community at that point is lifted. So for Oxcoin in a startup community, it is saying, because we have this construct of investment and exchanging equity for investment, there is this construct then of if we do this right, then the community not only profit from it because the value of the services is there, but profit from it because the value of the startups increase. So the ownership of that startup, the ownership of the companies then exists also partially within that economy. Now, ideally, it will be wholly within that economy.
So in other terms, it's a point system of equity for the service providers helping the startup.
Kind of. You think about barter card with equity. So you can pay with something other than the dollars that you pay for. You pay for something within the community. But there's actually an equity component to that, so that it's not just, this is now worth $1. This is worth $1, but it's also worth the portion of that company that's now succeeding. And as the value of that company goes up, then the value of the whole economy goes up.
So, specifically, startup companies and tech startup companies, how do you envisage Oxcoin to actually work in that space, though, specifically? Are there some examples that you could give us to sort of demonstrate that?
Certainly. So one of so this has come out of, XYZ Innovations is our company. Now, we make investments into startups and early stage companies. Now, the concept for Oxcoin is that and there's a lot of tech to build between now and when we actually make the first investment in this manner. But the way that we'll make this investment is that there'll be coins already issued and people will own the coins. We'll buy those coins back from people. So for anyone that wants to sell them, we'll buy those coins back, and then we will, instead of investing dollars, Australian dollars, into a startup, we'll invest these tokens, these OX coins, into a startup. That startup can then use those OX coins to pay for services. So we have a large component to the community, to the startup community in Newcastle and the Valley, already supportive of this. So we have co-working spaces, we have lawyers, we have accountants, we have digital providers, we have marketers, we have HR people. We've got a large component to the service providers that service startups and young companies, prepared to accept these coins, these OX coins, from the startup. Now, the reason they do that is because that OX coin then represents potential for growth in that community, but also because the next time we go make an investment from XYZ, we're going to say, okay, we need to make another investment. That means we need to buy more coins. So for any business that does accept these coins, we can say, you don't have to be afraid about there not being any liquidity on the market, not being anyone ready to buy or wanting to buy your tokens that you've accepted from this startup, because we need to buy these tokens from the community so that we can make an investment back into another startup.
I understand that you're currently building to launch. Do you have a date in mind, and what are the steps involved to launch this product?
We have many dates in mind, and there are many steps involved. Our aim is to make the first investment through this manner by the sort of first or second quarter next year. So either end of the first quarter, start of the second quarter next year. There's a hell of a lot of work that needs to go on before that. And at the moment we're in the midst of our private pre-sale. So we've sold some or taken some investment in our company already for that. And had some interest in selling some in the private pre-sale tokens. The next step after that then is our public sale. So the public token sale will, if we don't sell the whole component in the private pre-sale, will be towards the end of July that it starts, and hopefully it lasts, well, a few hours or a few minutes, as all good ICOs do.
Depending on the popularity, and
that's
everyone
right, yeah.
gets to throw them in there.
Our ultimate goal is to make sure that we funded this before we go to public sale. This is not about just taking this investment to build this, because the success of what we're doing revolves around having the whole community involved. So if we can get the community to back this and support this, so that's a community of founders, community of service providers, and community of investors. If we can get those people to already support this and support the building of this economy before we go to the public sale, then that's ideal, because that says to us that there is this validation, not just of people who are excited by it, but people who are prepared to put their money behind it and say, yeah, this is how we see the economy moving.
Okay, so that's the one question I'm interested in. How do people get involved, and how does startups come to you, or individuals who are interested, service providers and so forth? What's the process?
Yeah, certainly. So startups come to us, and they do at the moment. We get startups approaching us all the time, speaking to us about how we can help them, about what they need, where they're at in their business. Service providers, anyone keen to be involved in the first stage of this economy, please contact me. There is so the website for our token is auxhub.xyz. So that's auxhub.xyz. People can go there. There's a contact us form on that. For anyone who is interested in, as I said, it is a private pre-sale. So we are selling initially to our network, to our close network. We're not going out any further than that, but if anyone is particularly interested, again, they have to just reach out to us. Happy to have a conversation to see how people can be involved.
So all of those details that Andrew and also what Stephen spoke about can be also found at the Lunaticks Live website. After this, we've all gone up and somebody sat down and put all the details in.